Hi, it's Kaeyi, and this week on Hardware Heaven, our game review is on Far Cry 3 that is released on the 30th of November. Now, I was lucky enough to have the amazing opportunity to get my hands on this game developed by Ubisoft, and let's get straight into this week's review. As you get into Far Cry 3, you are thrown into the deep end. You are having cutscenes, you're learning about your character, you're learning about the characters around you, you're running away from bad guys, and you are literally thrown straight into the action. But this is what I love about this game. From the get-go, you will know within the first 10 minutes whether you are going to like or dislike Far Cry 3. Now, the first thing that you really notice is that the RPG element of this game is very strong. The way the characters are written, the way they interact with you is perfect. I never get attached with characters. If you've watched any of my previous reviews, I'm always playing the RPG type games but never really connect with anyone around me. Within the first 10 minutes, I felt myself welling up because of something that happens to one of my friends in game. This is something that never happens, and I think the way they tell the story of the characters around you and the way you interact with them really makes you connect and really has the RPG side of this FPS game. I decided to start Far Cry on Survivor. There are 3 different modes. You can have Adventurer, Survivor or Warrior. The 3 different modes basically are the 3 different difficulties. Adventurer is kind of suggested for someone who maybe isn't experienced in FPS games, and probably the one that I should have chosen. Survivor is just your standard one that they suggest for seasoned gamers. So someone who's probably had a bit of experience with FPS games or just console gaming in general and will probably know about the controls. And then the third one is Warrior. This is for a harder sort of challenge. Everything's a lot harder, and they say it's for someone who is really experienced in FPS games. I decided to choose, as I said, Survivor. I just thought it's the one in the middle. It's gonna be the normal kind of the gameplay. It is not an easy game. For someone like me who hasn't played a ton of FPS style games, I did find some of it difficult, and it took me a little while to figure out some of the controls, and I felt kind of on an Xbox controller something like the sprint was bound to the left stick, and I felt that really awkward to press and hold whilst trying to navigate, because also the left stick, the movement of it actually directed where your character was going, so it felt really awkward at first, but it was something that began to get a little bit more comfortable as time went on. I felt that could have just been bound to like a trigger or a top or a left-right button, anything else other than the left stick, but that's pretty much one of my only complaints so far with Far Cry 3. When you die, you get ported back to essentially one of your checkpoints. Now, usually in games, especially on consoles, the checkpoints are few and far between, and you end up repeating pretty much entire missions to actually get back to where you were and continuing the story. Far Cry 3 doesn't have that problem at all. The checkpoints are well spaced, so you feel that they are natural. If you die, you go back to a point where you feel, I would have actually restarted back from here, and they are far enough away that you are penalised in a way for dying, but not so far that you actually get annoyed at the fact I've got to repeat this entire thing again, I've got to run all this way. That is not the case. The checkpoints are very regular and often, and it doesn't feel sluggish and annoying if you die to actually learn from your mistakes. Moving on to the combat in Far Cry 3. From the beginning, you don't actually have any weapons, and essentially when you meet the kind of lead characters in the game that help you through the story, they start giving you weapons. The way you actually get more weapons is by unlocking kind of radio towers around the map. When you unlock a radio tower, you unlock the areas of the map and you can see where the gun sellers are and you can see where the fast travel waypoints are, and the gun sellers will actually give you weapons for free by unlocking these radio towers. And the story aspect of this is that they actually need those radio towers to source more product that they can sell, therefore they're going to repay you by giving you free weapons. So you can get various different guns and various ammo and things that you can use, and essentially is what you would expect from any FPS game, except there is one little twist that I in particularly love. When you get into combat to the point where you're having multiple people possibly shooting at you, or you and your team of allies are trying to kill a group of other people, the music and the action seems to slow down just a fraction, and it kind of almost feels like you would experience in Wanted, the film. So you kind of slow down and everything seems a little bit more aware, but not to the point where you're like, whoa, slow motion, not at all. It's just very slight that you will notice it and you'll, you know, really appreciate it. And it's just kind of more your awareness, and the music and the whole vibe of the actual combat feels a lot more intense, but not to the point where it's affecting your gameplay that, you know, you are actually moving really slow. That's not the case. I really love this because it really felt like my character and me were kind of really thinking about what we were going to do, and it's this really intense moment. You can hear the heart beating, and I personally just really loved it. It was a really nice touch. As I just mentioned quickly, you can fast travel around the map. It works like many other kind of RPG style console games. Essentially, when you unlock a point, you can then fast travel to that point. You simply just go on your map and you hover over to the area that you want to fast travel, which is located with a 2 arrow kind of symbol. You click A and you can travel to that point. It's very simple, it's really effective, and I'm glad that it's in the game because the map is huge. Moving on to kind of the skill sort of tree that you have in Far Cry 3, it's a very, very interesting way of actually getting the skills in game. Now, the way the skills are represented are actually by tattoos, and it's to do with the Rukjat tribe that you're kind of allying with to rescue your friends. And as you unlock new skills, you get new tattoos on your body, and you can actually see them on your character, which is awesome. The various skills are things like coming up behind characters and being able to take them out silently and no one being able to hear you, to being able to slide on the ground mid-run. These are all things that you can unlock in game, and by leveling up and gaining XP from doing things like missions and awesome kills, you get these skill points that then you can then spend and get more tattoos and more skills. So that's kind of how it works. Just the visual aspect of it is really, really interesting. I think it's just a really nice touch. It helps you blend in with the other characters in game, and the skills are actually really, really useful, and definitely you won't be able to complete some of the missions without actually unlocking some of these skills. Crafting was something I was really shocked to actually see in Far Cry 3, and I think it works amazingly. One of the first missions you actually have, you are given to explore the kind of jungle around you, and basically the story behind it is you won't be able to actually find your enemies if you don't know your surroundings. You have to go gather a load of plants, you have to kill some boars and get their kind of hides. You actually use this to craft some syringes to help heal you, and the hides you use to craft bags so that you can carry more items. It all makes a load of sense, and it really fits in with the story. Some crafting systems kind of feel out of place and kind of feel separate to the main game. This really works well, and you can actually see the crafting things that you can gather on the map. So you'll see a little icon for all of the little plants that you can gather, and you'll actually be able to use these plants to craft various potions and poisons and healing things. So it works really well. It flows with the game. With an RPG FPS, I really think it's necessary that these things kind of fit, and it definitely fits in with that kind of tribal Far Cry 3 feel, and I love it. The questing system in the game is awesome. You actually receive a lot of your quests just by characters talking to you. There's not so much much of a quest UI where you walk up to someone, you pick up a quest and you do it. It all kind of happens around you. Quests get updated and you'll see pop-ups on your screen that will advise you on what to do. There's also little arrows on the screen that will lead you to yellow points. Those yellow points are actually the kind of areas that you need to go to, or they highlight the people that you need to speak to. The way this works is really fluid. You're kind of constantly moving around and doing objectives without stopping and starting and handing things in and gathering things. It is just really clear what you need to do. It's simple. The text that actually tells you the actual things that you need to achieve for each quest is very clear, and you just know what you need to do, know what you need to go, and you can just do it, and it's a lot more enjoyable because it is so simple. I cannot stress enough how much I love the voice acting, the story, and the characters in this game, and that is something that I don't say very often. So I really have to say hats off to Ubisoft for this, because the voice acting fits perfectly with how you expect these characters to be. The character you play happens to be a very attractive man, by the way. I was shocked when I first saw him, and his voice, the way he kind of acts towards things, the way he reacts to the situation is perfect. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that you are thrown into things, and your character is in the exact same situation, which is why it's so easy to bond with him. He is just a person who's on holiday, who has ended up in this situation, doesn't know how to fire a gun. I don't know how to fire a gun. He's never really been in a kind of a situation or a place like this, and hasn't ever had to rescue anyone, and it's his learning curve and the journey, and he's learning new skills as you're learning how to play the game. It's a perfect match, and I couldn't have found a game that more describes kind of my learning curve in sort of FPS RPG games, and I think it works perfectly. As I said, the voice acting, the way you receive quests, it's all kind of audio, you hear everything that's going on around you, and it works great. I really have enjoyed playing this game, and I would definitely recommend buying it. Even if you haven't played Far Cry or Far Cry 2, this game is so enjoyable. The storyline is awesome, and I can't wait to just explore more and play more throughout the game. This has all been a single player kind of review, and we will cover multiplayer aspects of the game at a later date, so make sure you do check that out. I would definitely give this game like 9.5 out of 10. The only faults I could find were just the running, the sprinting, and the driving. The rest of the game and the story is really great. You need to experience it, because from the get-go I knew that I would love Far Cry 3, and that's all I really have to say. I hope you enjoyed this review. Make sure to click the subscribe and like button, and check out the other videos on the channel. See you next time. Bye.